we are going to go through a question that we received during the week. And this question is from Catherine Hegarty.
Yes, okay.
What is Catherine asking?
So Catherine asked, hello from New Jersey. Thinking of doing a trip to the New Zealand North Island, 10 to 12 days, wondering about doing an independent drive around the island. I'm inquiring about the Golden Shears competition and festival in Masterton and wanted to visit Napier to see the vintage cars. Not really interested in visiting the wineries there. Was hoping to visit the Waiheke Island when staying in Auckland and experience what the winery has to offer, etc. Also, wanted to visit the Rotorua Redwood Tree Walk and Hobbiton and the Tongariro crossing, and I assume I would need to book a hotel for 2 days. Any advice how I should plan my trip? Greatly appreciated. Love your website, very informative. Thank you, Robin and Laura, in advance.
I love how much details we got on this question. That's really good. But that's called for an itinerary, which calls for a map. Here you go, Laura.
It does. It's been a long time since our trusty itinerary map.
I know. In the meantime, good morning, Kiwi Laura, and we'll go through your question as soon as we finish with this one. All right. So for your itinerary, Catherine, we thought, so obviously you're going to be starting in Auckland. That's where almost everybody starts and lands. Then we're going to drive to Rotorua. Then to Napier. Then to Masterton. Then you're just going to pop into Wellington. Then you're going to make your way up to National Park. Then New Plymouth. Then Waitomo. And then all the way back up to Auckland. So the reason why we put all those spots on the map for you is just to show you a little bit where you're going to be going and what you're going to be doing, but as well as show you that none of the drive that we planned for you for this 10 to 12 day itinerary is going to be too long. The longest drive that you're going to have, I think, is going to be
between Wellington and National Park.
Wellington to Tongariro National Park, and that's going to be about a little over 3 hours, like 3 hours and a quarter or something like that. Everything else is going to be in a range of 2 to 2.5 hours at most, so you're not going to drive too much. And also you notice that there's only 8 points on the map, knowing that you have 10 to 12 days in New Zealand. That allows you to have between 4 different destinations in which you can spend 2 days in, which allow you to explore them a little bit more. Maybe in Auckland, so you can spend a whole day going to Waiheke. Maybe in Napier, since you really look, you look like you're really keen on exploring Napier and all the Art Deco. Maybe in Masterton, if you are timing yourself well for the Golden Shears Festival over there, you may want to get an extra day there. And probably one also in National Park, because this is where you're going to be. That's going to be your base camp to do the Tongariro National Park, and that's a whole
Tongariro
day.
Crossing.
Tongariro Crossing, sorry. So that's going to be a whole day for you to do the whole hike. So I wouldn't recommend driving much, and also doing the whole hike is just going to be too big of a day.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get started and give you a little bit of information on all those places. And the first thing that's going to happen to you is that you're going to be landing in Auckland. So when you land in Auckland, what I would recommend is to get 1 extra day and to do an activity. So we recommend quite a few things in Auckland. You can do very simple, go up to the Sky Tower. You can go to an island called Rangitoto Island, which is an extinct volcano, and you can do a hike there. It's just a short ferry away. There is a beautiful island with a ton of birds called Tiri Matangi, but it looks like you're into wines. So what about you hop on the ferry on day 1 in New Zealand, straight away go for the wine, and you go to Waiheke Island. There is some wine tours there, and I think that's going to be the best way for you to kind of make the most out of your time on Waiheke Island. You hop on the tour, and they will take you to between 3 and 4 different wineries. You're going to get tasters there, and you're also going to stop for a meal and everything. So it's going to be quite nice. There is a company called Ananda, if I'm correct, that we experienced. They also stop at some olive oil places, which is quite cool. Like, it's to give you a bit of variety, not just doing wine. Waiheke Island is really beautiful. You'll have some nice view of the whole Hauraki Gulf, which is basically where it's a big gulf with a lot of little islands. And The ferry to go to Waiheke Island is extremely regular and it goes well into the night, so you'll be able to come back quite late if you want to. But honestly, since it's going to be your first day in Auckland, I think it's just to kind of manage the jet lag and do something which is a little bit more mellow. Like I wouldn't recommend a big hike or something like that straight away. And then you're going to drive your way on the next day all the way to Rotorua. But we recommend you to stop in Hobbiton on the way, since it's on your list.
Yeah. So Hobbiton, yep, you can definitely get there on the way to Rotorua. And the great thing about the Hobbiton tour is that it's only about a couple of hours long. So it's a good way to just break up the drive, but also give you enough time to do your road trip as well. Obviously we probably don't need to explain too much about what Hobbiton is about. Most people that want to go to Hobbiton kind of know what they're going for, to get to see the really cool movie set from the Lord of the Rings. So that is near a town called Matamata. Once you get to Rotorua, if you have time, there's a lot of evening Maori shows, for instance, where you can go and experience some of the cultural performances, learn a little bit about the Maori culture at places like, for instance, Tamaki Maori Village or Mitai Maori Village. So that would be a great way to sort of end the day traveling between Auckland, stopping at Hobbiton, and then ending in Rotorua and getting to experience the Maori culture.
Indeed, it would be. I'm going to put it here. It looks nicer here on the camera. All right, so then I'm going to get you to drive from Rotorua all the way to Napier. So that is probably the second longest drive you're going to be doing. It's about 2.5 hours. Start at 8 a.m. and then you are sorted at 10:30. You're ready to explore Napier. Napier is a really awesome town. It's a very unique feeling town. Out of all the town in New Zealand, I think it's probably one of the most unique. It's very Art Deco, so it has all those arc kind of architectures and everything. It's awesome just to walk around.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned on your question, there is a lot of wineries around, and there is some really phenomenal wineries all around the Napier area. But you mentioned you were not interested in checking out the wines in Napier. You want to check out the old car and just kind of like the Art Deco things and vibe in Napier. So to do that, there is a walking tour that you can go with the Art Deco Center. Is that correct?
Art Deco Trust.
Deco Trust. Here you go. I knew there was Art Deco.
Alternatively, there is an Art Deco tour that's actually in a vintage car. So I'm not quite sure what the name of that company is, but there are options to do sort of even winery tours in vintage cars and that sort of thing. So if you want to incorporate a little bit more of the vintage car sort of thing, that's probably the best way to do it. Because although Napier, there's a lot of photos of Napier with vintage cars and stuff. The vintage cars are usually more on display during the Art Deco weekend, which is a type of like festival in Napier, and that's when it's the best time to see like a variety of vintage cars. Compared to some of the museums and stuff around New Zealand, there's quite a few museums that are dedicated to vintage cars. So the best way in Napier to experience vintage cars is probably to go on one of those sort of vintage car Art Deco tours.
All right, and then we're going to drive all the way from Napier to Masterton. There's going to be a loop like that. I'm going to be specific. Okay. And you're going to go to Masterton for the Golden Shear Festival. So the Golden Shear Festival, you have to be there on time, right? It's not a festival that lasts for too long, so you've got to be aware of that. So plan your trip. I will plan my entire trip around that festival if you go there just for that. But another great thing about Masterton, I'm not going to expand too much because you already know what you're doing in Masterton. And if you guys don't know, the Golden Shear Festival is a festival related to sheep shearing and sheep herding and all these kind of things. And Masterton is really famous for that. In fact, there is a massive statue of a sheep shearer in Masterton to celebrate.
There are some giant golden shears, actually.
Yes, as well, so there is, Masterton is the... I don't know if it's officially, but it's the sheep shearing capital of New Zealand.
Yeah, Tech Witty might have something to say about that.
Oh, that's true. But the good thing about Masterton, since you sorted over there, is that you are quite close to Wellington. So you got a couple of options. If you feel like you haven't driven enough and you want to make the most out of your car rental, you can drive your way to Wellington if you want to, but you can also hop in a train. So like that, you can just get yourself down to Wellington. And it's just a commuting train, so that's not going to cost you too much. And you can make your way to Wellington, where I definitely think you should spend a day.
Yeah, so in Wellington City, some of the highlights are the Te Papa Museum. Museum, which is a free museum, and it is the National Museum of New Zealand. So it's a really good place to sort of learn about lots of different aspects of New Zealand, including like the flora and fauna, the Maori culture, the European cultures, and all that sort of thing. So that's always a good place to go. Alternatively, a really cool place we love to go in Wellington is a place called Zealandia, which is a bird sanctuary. It's a sort of like this huge park which is protected by a predator-proof fence. So the birds can come and go as they please, but once they're in this sanctuary, they're basically safe from introduced predators that have been introduced to New Zealand since human migration. But yeah, it's a really cool place to see some of the amazing native birds around New Zealand. With your itinerary so far, there's probably not too much opportunity to be able to see some of the wildlife in New Zealand. So probably Zealandia and Wellington would be the best way to experience some of that.
I tend to agree, actually. I think that should be what the activity you pick in Wellington, Catherine. Okay, so once you're done in Wellington, so either, again, you base yourself in Masterton, you just take the train and you get back to your accommodation in Masterton, or either you drive from Wellington. So if you were to drive from Wellington, sorry about that. If you were to drive from Wellington, this will be your longest drive. And that will take you about 3 hours and a quarter to go all the way to National
More like
Park.
3 hours and 50 minutes.
3 hours and 50?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard 15, so that's why I said 3 and a quarter. Sorry. 3 hours and 50, so about 4 hours drive.
Yeah.
But if you go from Masterton, that's only going to be about 3 hours. So here you go. Maybe you should base yourself in Masterton. Anyway, 4 hours drive, you go to National Park. So National Park is a wonderful place in New Zealand. It's very central. You get some amazing volcanoes. You get some volcanic landscape. I feel like this is where the Tongariro crossing is, and I feel it's a place that almost everybody has on their bucket list when coming to New Zealand. I wouldn't recommend doing the Tongariro crossing right as soon as you arrive there. It is a bit of a longer walk. It's about 9 hours at just a nice pace. If you're like us, you're doing it 3 hours, but that's insane.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hike. So I will actually make sure that this is a place, Tongariro National Park, that I will spend an extra day there. I just realized I didn't do the
lines.
I'm going to do the line with a ... So like that, I encourage you to take the train right here. Here you go. So it's a wonderful place. Now, when you arrive, and let's say you have half the day when you just arrive in National Park, don't worry, you will be able to fill your day with some wonderful walk. There's a ton of very short walk, and actually on nzpocketguide.com we do have an article recapping a ton of short walk in National Park, which are not the Tongariro crossing. So you can do yourself a favor and do a couple of 2 hours hike, and you go to a waterfall or to a volcanic views and all that. Just explore the area. And if you feel like treating yourself, you can go to the chateau. It's a really big building in which you can have high tea. So if you feel like you stay in the mood of the art deco and you want to treat yourself in the chateau, you get there, you have yourself some nice little canapes with some nice little tea with wonderful views. And if you feel like you don't want to walk and you still want to experience the volcanic landscape, there is actually a gondola in which you can pay a bit of money and you go all the way up and you get to check out some awesome views from there. And there is a cafe up there. I don't really recommend spending too much money on the food in the cafe. It's not great. It's all kind of like reheated stuff. So I wouldn't spend my money on the food there, but the view is fantastic. Yeah. That's just my personal tip on there. And then you're going to be making your way to New Plymouth.
Yeah, so this is also going to be quite a long drive, but not as long as between Wellington to National Park, but this is definitely worth the long drive because you are going to be taking a scenic route to get to New Plymouth. You're going to be taking the Forgotten World Highway. Now, if you want to know more about what the Forgotten World Highway is, then we do have a video on this channel about us actually taking the Forgotten World Highway in our big motorhome and experiencing it. Actually, we stay halfway.
Experiencing the stress of trying to go through that tunnel with a big camper van, and are we scraping the tunnel or not?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting road trip, and partway through your journey, you will reach the Republic of Whangamamona, which is an independent republic apart from New Zealand. Despite being in the middle of New Zealand, it is actually not a part of New Zealand. They have their own presidents. You can go and get your passport stamped at the hotel.
And the president is a goat.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. The president now is a lady.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yes,
that's
the
true.
goat. I don't know what. An assassination attempt or something.
Yeah, I think that was during the curry festival.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a really interesting road trip. It's a mix between going through like really scenic farmland, but then going into a really sort of deep river gorge. There's sort of quick side trips to waterfalls and that sort of thing. So this is a really interesting journey that you'll want to take your time doing. And basically, it's an activity in itself to get between National Park and New Plymouth.
Nice. Then you're going to make your way to Waitomo to go see some amazing glowworms.
Yeah, so Waitomo is, well, it's one of the probably more famous places in the North Island. It's famous for its glowworm caves. And there's various different ways that you can experience the glowworm caves in Waitomo. There's some easygoing sort of walking and then boat trips. So this takes maybe about half an hour, the tour. You get to see some beautiful limestone caves. And then the tour ends with getting in a boat and gently floating underneath a huge galaxy of glowworms. And there's a couple of companies that do that. There's the Waitomo Glowworm Caves, and then there's a company called Spellbound. So just so you know that there's different companies to compare there.
We actually talk about all of them on the website.
Yes, we do. We do have an article which is like 6 different ways to tackle the Waitomo Cave, so you can sort of see all your different options and compare the different companies that do those options. And then just to quickly go over, there's caving. You can do caving in Waitomo, so you can do there's various different tours for this, but there's 2 main companies that do caving. There's the Blackwater Rafting Company and there's Waitomo Adventures.
You've got to be quite fit and ready to go for that.
Yes, yeah, you do.
Okay, and then you make your way back to Auckland. So at that point, this is when you go back to your wine, if you want to go back to the wine in Auckland, or it's when you want to just take a day to relax in Auckland and enjoy the city over there, buy all the souvenirs if you want, before heading back home and flying back home. So this is how we will spend 10 to 12 days on the North Island with your requirement, Catherine. So I feel like we cover all your points, but if you do have some follow-up, just make sure to give it to us. I think you're on the live chat right now. Let's have a look. She says, great tip, thanks. And she says, the train's a good idea. And yes, I do want to spend some time in Wellington. She's going to base herself in Masterton. That's a good idea. And she said she should look up the articles. Yes, check out NZ Pocket Guide. And yeah, she will treat herself to high tea. So it looks like Catherine's happy with the itinerary. You're very welcome. If you guys have some questions on, if you do have an itinerary that you would like us to plan with you, you can do that with us simply by popping into our live sessions, opening your questions in any of the comments of our video. You just give us some information that Catherine did, and then during our live session, we just pop in and we just talk about it together. Yeah. If you have any follow-up, you just put it in a live chat. We chat together. It's really fun. Another way you can kind of interact with us is on Facebook. You can head to our Facebook page and kind of like it. We post a lot of like travel tips and everything on there. You can also hit a like. It's a great free way to say thank you for all our hard work. You can hit subscribe if you want more travel tips. There's so many ways you can chat with us. And best of all, there is nzpocketguide.com, in which we have tens of itineraries ready for you, so you can just have like little food itineraries with even our recommendation for accommodation and everything. So we have done all the hard work for you. So it's nzpocketguide.com, and all of that is free. So here you go. Let's go back to live chat.